During the 1970s energy crisis, researchers documented a passive solar heating method so simple it could warm a house all winter for under $1 in materials. It worked. It was measured. Then it quietly vanished from building codes, curricula, and public conversation. Today, only 15% of architecture programs even mention passive solar. The answer has less to do with science and more to do with who profits when you heat your home. In the wake of the 1970s energy crisis, a surge of interest in low-cost solar heating swept through research labs and home workshops alike. Engineers, architects, and even ordinary homeowners experimented with simple ways to harness sunlight, often using little more than cardboard, black paint, and salvaged glass. The results were promising, with measured gains of several degrees indoors, and heating bills trimmed by a third or more in some field trials. Yet, as oil prices stabilized and the economy shifted, these grassroots solutions faded from public view. The economics behind this disappearance are straightforward. Heating fuel is big business, and the established energy market rewards products and services that can be sold repeatedly, including gas, oil, electric heat, and the equipment to deliver it. A passive solar trick that costs $1 to build, requires no maintenance, and slashes demand for fuel offers little incentive for manufacturers or utilities to promote it. Profit models rely on recurring sales, not one-time fixes. As a result, innovations that reduce consumption without generating ongoing revenue often struggle to find institutional support. Education followed a similar pattern. By the mid-1980s, building science curricula in universities began pivoting toward advanced mechanical systems and high-efficiency equipment. Passive solar design, once a hot topic, was relegated to the margins. Today, only about 15% of accredited architecture programs in the United States offer any substantial instruction in passive heating. Most treat it as an afterthought, if they mention it at all. This curricular gap means that new generations of architects and builders leave school with little exposure to the principles that make these simple systems work. The silence extends to building codes and design handbooks. While standards meticulously specify insulation values and mechanical requirements, they rarely account for the free energy entering through a sunlit window or a home-built air collector. Without official recognition, these approaches remain invisible in mainstream construction. The result is a system where practical, low-cost solar heating is known mostly by hobbyists and a handful of specialists, rather than by the professionals shaping our homes and cities. Every passive solar heater, no matter how simple, relies on the same basic physics. Sunlight carries energy, and the right surfaces can capture and hold that energy for hours after the sun goes down. The process starts with absorptivity, the ability of a surface to soak up incoming light. A matte black panel, for example, has an absorptivity close to 0.9, meaning it converts about 90% of the sunlight it receives into heat. That is why nearly every effective collector, whether it is a painted metal sheet or a row of blackened bottles, uses a dark surface facing the sun. But capturing heat is only part of the story. The next challenge is keeping that warmth from escaping. Here, the building's envelope and orientation matter just as much as the collector itself. In the northern hemisphere, a south-facing wall or window receives the most winter sunlight. Even a small tilt, from 10 to 20 degrees toward the south, can boost solar gain by up to 10% at mid-latitudes. Low emissivity glazing, often called low-E glass, adds another layer of efficiency. It lets visible sunlight in, but reflects infrared heat back inside, reducing the U value, the measure of heat loss, down to about 1.0 to 1.2 watts per square meter per degree Kelvin. This means less warmth leaks out on cold nights. Insulation plays a crucial supporting role. A well-sealed, insulated envelope ensures that the heat collected during the day is not lost through gaps or thin walls. Even the best collector struggles if the surrounding structure leaks energy faster than it can be supplied. That is why high-performance passive designs always start with airtight construction and continuous insulation, then layer on solar collection. The geometry, the size and placement of collectors, windows, and thermal mass translates these physical principles into real-world comfort. A south-facing window sized to about 10 to 15% of the floor area can deliver meaningful heat in winter, especially if paired with interior surfaces that absorb and store the sun's energy. The right combination of absorptivity, orientation, and insulation allows even the simplest do-it-yourself collector to punch above its weight, turning a few hours of sunlight into a night's worth of warmth. A working solar can collector starts with the basics: a frame, a sealed air path, and a series of ordinary aluminum cans. Most DIY builders collect between 100 and 140 cans, rinsed and dried, with the ends cut away to create open cylinders. These cans are stacked into vertical columns, usually 10 to 12 cans high and joined end to end with high-temperature silicone. The columns are then arranged side by side within a simple box, often built from plywood or rigid foam board, creating a matrix of parallel air channels. The frame itself is sized to fit the available window or wall space, but a common build measures about 1 meter wide by 2 meters tall, holding a dozen columns. Once the can array is in place, every seam and joint is sealed with a generous bead of silicone to prevent air leaks. This step is critical. Even small gaps can let heated air escape or draw in moisture, undermining both performance and durability. The back and sides of the box are insulated with foam board to keep heat moving in only one direction, toward the living space. The front is covered with a sheet of clear acrylic or polycarbonate, which acts as glazing, trapping solar energy while allowing light to reach the black painted cans inside. Builders typically allow the silicone to cure for at least 24 hours before the first test run, ensuring an airtight seal. To address condensation, a small drainage hole is added at the bottom of the frame, and a fine mesh over the inlet keeps out insects and debris. The result is a collector that channels sunlight into stored heat, ready to be drawn into the home. With careful assembly and attention to sealing, even a low-cost homemade unit can deliver reliable performance through an entire winter season. Direct measurement is where the promise of these homemade solar heaters meets reality. In university, capstone trials, and community science projects, the numbers tell a consistent story. A well-built aluminum can collector, roughly 1 meter by 2 meters, can deliver up to 2,246 BTU per hour, about 660 watts, under full sun. That is not a guess or an internet myth. Multiple student teams have logged outlet air temperatures 12 to 15 degrees Celsius above ambient, with steady airflow moving through the can columns. The heat output, measured with thermocouples and anemometers, lines up with what is claimed in countless DIY videos. But the real breakthrough comes when airflow is boosted. Adding a small solar-powered fan, costing just a few dollars, can increase the mass of air moved through the collector by 10 to 20%. This is not about brute force. It is about extracting more of the sun's energy before it escapes. In side-by-side tests, the addition of a fan raised the outlet temperature by another 2 degrees Celsius and pushed total heat output up by roughly 10%. The fan only spins when sunlight is strong enough to make a difference, so it cannot waste energy at night or on cloudy days. For a typical small room, this output covers a significant share of the heating load during daylight hours. The numbers are credible, reproducible, and easy to verify with basic tools. Yet even as the science holds up, the simplicity of the upgrade, a $3 fan wired to a small solar panel, underscores how accessible these gains are. The challenge is not technical, it is about recognition. Despite clear evidence of performance, these solutions remain on the fringe, rarely discussed in professional circles or official guidance. The next barrier is not in the hardware, it is in the system that decides what counts as real progress. Barriers to mainstream adoption of passive solar heating run deeper than simple economics. In the United States, fewer than 1 in 7 accredited architecture programs offer more than a cursory mention of passive heating in their curriculum. Most students graduate without ever learning how to size a sun-facing window or calculate the heat storage of a concrete slab. Building codes add another layer of friction. While regulations spell out insulation requirements in fine detail, they rarely acknowledge the value of free solar gain. Any deviation from the prescribed formulas, like adding a homemade solar air heater, can trigger extra compliance paperwork or outright rejection by local inspectors. Insurance policies reinforce this inertia. Many standard homeowner policies include clauses that void coverage for any modification not installed by a licensed contractor or not specifically approved by the insurer. As one building science professor puts it, if it's not in the codebook or the textbook, it's invisible to the system. The result is a web of institutional neglect that keeps low-cost solar tricks on the margins regardless of their proven potential. Gary Rea, a retired engineer, kept meticulous records of his own home-built solar air heater through a full winter in Michigan. His logs show a consistent temperature rise of 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit between the collector inlet and outlet on clear afternoons, a delta that rivals the output of a small furnace. Ra published his data online, including hour-by-hour readings and airflow rates, making his setup one of the few with transparent, reproducible results. The collector, built for under $10 in salvaged materials, delivered enough warm air to offset much of the home's conventional heating load. For building scientists, this level of documentation stands out. It proves that with careful design and basic materials, a do-it-yourself solar heater can produce substantial, measurable heat in cold, cloudy climates. Rea's example offers both inspiration and a standard for what's possible when evidence and curiosity drive innovation. Today, most new homes still ignore basic passive solar design, even as heating costs and emissions rise. The science is settled and the barriers are not. When a $1 solution remains sidelined, the real question is who benefits from keeping it out of reach? What possibilities could we unlock if we demand better?